How good are you at pacing yourself? In order to get the maximum amount of energy, focus, joy out of living and doing and taking care of all of the things that you need to take care of. How good are you at pacing yourself and balancing your energy? Historically, I have not been so good at that. In fact, I've been pretty terrible at that. So, let me tell you about it. Today's topic has been on my mind a lot lately, and because, as I said in the intro, over the years I have not been so good at it, and I'm starting to understand more and more why that is. First of all, and I'm going to tell you about that, but first of all, let me tell you what pacing means for me. And I'm reading this from notes that I took in my phone, because sometimes journaling for me means grabbing my phone and quickly typing in the inspiration, the education, or the revelation that I get, and I don't want to forget. So if I don't have a handwritten journal or piece of paper or something handy, then I grab my phone and I type it in. So just remember that an electronic device can also be your journal. I mean, I love big fancy journals. Back when I was younger, I used to be willing to pay a lot more for them than I am now. But, the big leather bound journals, it was just something very romantic about that for me. But, yeah, nowadays, hey, a journal is anything I can grab. I mean, yeah, so including my phone, that's my point. So these notes were in my phone, but since I'm using my phone to record, I then took the notes out of my phone and I jotted them down in a spiral notebook, which I'm using as my journal. Okay, so for me, pacing myself means not moving too fast because of anxiety, and not moving too slowly because of fear. Let me say that again. Let me read that again. For me, pacing myself means not moving too fast because of anxiety, and not moving too slowly because of fear. What I learned about myself was so often I would be hurrying, scurrying around because I was anxiously functioning, anxiously moving about. And that anxiety for me is generally externally focused, meaning that I'm worried about someone else's possible expectations of my performance, right? Which for the majority of my life was also, I tied my performance to my value, okay? Which is a very typical trauma response, especially for people with early developmental trauma. And that's where perfectionism and all of that comes in. So, yeah, I would be anxiously moving around, but I was concerned about someone else's perception of me or possible perception of me, right? And that's the thing about anxiety. We're moving in a way as if something is real when what we are concerned about happening may never happen. Okay? That's for me that is how I define anxiety. Anxiety for me is more externally focused on meeting someone else's expectations. Fear, on the other hand, what causes me to procrastinate and to move too slowly and to become, what's the word, paralyzed, or to, you know how when you dread something, you avoid it. So fear for me is more internally centered because it revolves around my own unrealistic expectations and fear of making a mistake. So while anxiety can cause me to hurry around anxiously, fear can cause me, if I let it, to stop, to just not do anything, to put it off, to shrink back from it. Okay, so for me, it's about learning to balance, to find that balance, to understand what is motivating my behavior. Is it anxiety that is causing me to just rush around and move too fast and wear myself out? Or is it fear that is causing me to be immobile and not do what I need to do? The goal is to live more in the middle of those two extremes. And that is what I define as balance. So I'll come back to that question at the end in the scripture reference that I want to read to you. But before that, I just want to share with you a video that I recorded last Wednesday. I was planning to post it on Instagram and Facebook and here on YouTube as well, regarding dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome and learning to pace myself. What happened though, when we talk about balance and not having unrealistic expectations of myself or allowing the fear of the expectations and perceptions of other people to motivate me and motivate my behavior. Well, Wednesday, I had every intention to publish that video, but then I had family responsibilities come up and some unexpected things that happened that I needed to take care of and I needed to be present for. Could I have sort of pushed those things and those people to the side and did this thing that I wanted to do, which was post this video from that I had recorded last Wednesday? Yes, I could have done that, but one of my priorities is prioritizing people there in my relationships with them. And if there is a person who needs my attention right then and there, then I'm going to make the choice to give that to that person. And so that is what I chose to do last Wednesday. So I did not post the video because I wasn't able to get back to it just to even do it, to even write the captions and do all of that. You know, it's a whole production. But I was okay with that. Now, see, the old me would have been so full of anxiety that I would have anxiously hurried and, put something together and done that. And then at the expense of this relationship that is very important to me. Or, which is what I decided to do, just wait until this coming Wednesday, because, hey, we have a Wednesday every week, and then go ahead and post it then. And then as the idea of pacing myself, and the more I'm understanding myself and how it shows up in my life, and the adjustments I need to make, then I decided that I would talk about it still on this podcast episode. And if there's time, include that video as part of it as well. And I'll still probably publish it or post it on Wednesday as well on my other social media platforms. I wanted to share with you a scripture, and this is actually the reference scripture for the main section, main introductory section of my own guided journal, which is called Overflow, a 100-day self-discovery journal. But I love this scripture reference, and I think it really ties into the subject today. It's taken from the Message Bible, and it's Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30. And this is Jesus speaking, and Jesus says, "Are you tired?" I was, yes. Are you worn out? Yes. Burned out on religion? Yes and yes. Come to me. Get away with me. Now, get away with me. Doesn't that sound like somebody who is taking some time to reset and refresh and recover? And he actually says, and if you do this, you'll recover your life. We give up so much of our lives trying to match other people's pace and trying to meet other people's expectations, things that God is not even requiring and expecting of us. And then we end up worn out, exhausted, burnout. He says, I'll show you how to take a real rest. And I believe here he's talking about not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because all of that affects how we feel physically, right? He says, walk with me. Walk, a pace, right? Walking has a pace, and we each walk at a different pace. Walk with me and work with me. So we know we still have things to do, but what is motivating our working? What are we motivated by? He says, watch how I do it. So we need to study the life of Jesus and how he moved through life. I believe that if we want to live our best lives. He says, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. This has become a mantra for me. I've been teaching it pretty much everywhere I go. I was recently on a wonderful radio show on Voice America Radio called Living Strong, the Flip Side of Adversity with the amazing Dr. Virdra Jackson. And I will put the link to that in the description. But there we were talking about that too. And we talked a little bit about finding our own unforced rhythms of grace. And I love the word unforced. So this is what comes naturally to you, what is necessary for you right now in this season, and it's unforced. It's not something that you are constantly pushing yourself to do, but it's a flow, it's rhythms. And I love that it's rhythms plural because our rhythm, our pace goes up and down, right? It speeds up, it slows down, right? There are times when we need to push ourselves because we have a deadline or a project. But then we also need to know that we cannot, and we should not be expected to maintain that pace continually because we're going to end up exhausted. So, knowing when to speed up and when to slow down, but letting that be not because of an external expectation or especially unrealistic expectation or an internal unrealistic expectation. And that's the thing that's the key. That so often we're moving at unrealistic pacing that we cannot maintain and sustain. And this last part is really key also. He says, I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you, meaning that it will be what fits you, who you are, your purpose in life, and what your needs are at this moment in time. Not that it won't sometimes be hard and difficult, because life is sometimes hard and difficult, but you'll be able to move through it. You'll be able to sustain and maintain and keep moving forward, whether it's at a slower pace or a faster pace, but it will be unforced, not motivated by anxiety of what someone else might think or fear of making a mistake and not meeting your own unrealistic standard. Okay? And finally, he says, keep company with me. Hang out with me. Spend time with me in my presence. Not just learning about me, but getting to know me. The more time we spend with anyone, the better we know that person and the closer we are drawn to that person. And if you've ever had a mentor, teacher, you know that after a while you start to take on some of the characteristics of that person, right? And he says, and you'll learn to live how? Freely, yes, and lightly, yes, and yes. Because, hey, life is heavy enough without us making it heavier than it needs to be. Can I get a witness? So, what is Jesus' example? I keep thinking about this scripture, and it's in one of the Gospels, and I will put it in the show notes. In the Gospels, the writers often described the same events, but some in greater detail than others. They did it from their own perspectives. They wrote from their own unforced rhythms of grace, right? That made them who they were. So, but it's one of them where when it talks about Jesus had, just finished ministering to, I believe, a crowd of people, and so they get into the boat to go to another location. It's sort of like when someone is on the road, and then they leave that city and state, and they get on the tour bus and drive to the next location. Well, they were on their way to the next location, and Jesus was tired, and he recognized the need for balance. After you have poured out like that and poured into people like that, you need to rest. People pull your energy. You need rest and recovery and restoration. And so Jesus got a pillow, laid down in the boat, and took a nap. So if Jesus recognized the need to take naps, why don't we? And I think maybe I'll do a whole podcast episode on taking naps. But the point is understanding when you need to push forward and when you need to pull back, when you need to press in and when you need to lay it down, when you have poured out and you need to be refilled. And what is your motivation for moving through life? I believe that Jesus tells us in scripture that his motivation was always to do his Father's will. His motivation was to fulfill the purpose for which he was sent here. That is my motivation as well. And so if that's going to be my motivation, then I have to learn what is the best way to do that. And one of the main things I believe is by always understanding what is motivating my movements right now. The speed at which I move or the speed at which I'm not moving and I need to be moving. What is motivating my pace? So I leave that question with you as well as one to always stay aware of and ask yourself, what is motivating your pace at this moment? And is it time for you to push, to speed up a little bit? Or is it time for you to slow down a little bit? And do you need to make an adjustment somewhere? And remember that those adjustments, that balancing, will continue to happen throughout life. So I think that's enough for today. Maybe I'll pick it up again in the future as I get greater revelation for myself on it. This is my 10th episode, and I think I'm going to take a little break because I want to upload the audio versions to Spotify. And I have some conferences coming up and some other things going on as well. So if you are interested, I'm going to put these in the show notes as well, but in February, the last Saturday in February, February 24th, I'm going to be doing an interactive workshop on my biblical soul care plan. And so if you're not in the Toledo area and you want to attend that, please take a look at I'll put the link below and you can attend that. And it's going to be really, and one of the things we're going to talk about is sort of how Jesus moved through life to be able to handle the stress and the pressures of the life that he lived, and the calling on his life and the ministry and responsibilities that he had. So that's in February. And then on April 20th, me and 3 beautiful ladies are going to be hosting the first ever the Overflow Life Virtual Women's Conference. This first inaugural event will be virtual only, and the price will be reflective of that, and it also is inaugural pricing as well. In the future, we'll look to have a hybrid situation, but even though it's going to be virtual, I want you to know it's going to be so much fun and so different from what you're used to, and there's going to be something for everyone, I promise you. We're going to have a little poetry. We're going to have a cooking demonstration. We're going to have do some journaling. We've got a licensed counselor who's going to teach us some things. So yeah, ladies, join us. The event in February is for the ladies and the guys. The event in April is for ladies only, guys, sorry. But I will put the link in the show notes, and check it out. Hope to see you all there. And I will be continually uploading videos to YouTube. So please like, subscribe, share. And if you want to join my mailing list, you can do that at my website, janetlynnboswell.com. So take care, everybody. Love you. I value you. I'm praying for you. Okay, bye.